Gehe. I am with Taiko Community Alliance as the Executive Director, and today's topic of Doros and Cents will be volunteer and corporate match programs. I'm really excited for these things and to share a really quick overview of what it looks like because they do help, especially to community groups, double their fundraising efforts in a very short period of time, and you'll be able to see why. This session, of course, is being recorded, so for anyone that signed up that couldn't make it today, you'll get access to this recording as well as TCA members and the greater Taiko community later this summer. So let's go ahead and talk about what we will discuss today. Really want to give a high level overview of what volunteer matching looks like, as well as what corporate matching looks like, the differences between the two, and really importantly, why are there significant aspects to both of those programs to help you fundraise. So your Taiko group actually could help earn more money faster by having these match programs in place. And to help you get started, I also have some recommended tips to get a matching campaign going that we'll talk about. Of course, I always share some of my experience and recommendations at the end, and then we'll stop the recording for a brief question and answer session that happens live for anyone that's attending today. So let's go ahead and get things started. Volunteer matching, in a nutshell, is when a company is going to match an amount of volunteer time someone devotes to a nonprofit with some type of monetary value. It's at the company's discretion, but the industry average in 2023 was about $30 per person per hour is what they were monetizing volunteer time for. This type of matching usually is part of like your employee benefits. So if you work for a very large company, one of your fringe benefits or your perks could be that they volunteer match up to a certain dollar amount or a certain amount of your time each year. This also just happens to be part of like corporations that have a branch that is a foundation or a giving portion of what they do. They'll do this as well. So not just for their employees, but for the community at large. This type of match program, I love. It is a true win-win because volunteers get to double how they're helping the community. You could volunteer your time at one organization and assign your matching funds to another, or you can double up on the same organization, right? We have a couple of volunteers for TCA that do just that. So they work their day job, and then whatever time they volunteer for TCA, we get them for their time, and then we also get their matching funds and that type of donation as well. And then, of course, the corporations like it because it's considered a tax write-off, and it adds to their charitable giving at the end of the year. It typically happens in like a 3-stage process. So volunteers will give their time, like I was saying. They must perform the hours that they said prior to submitting anything to their match programs. That's a pretty common rule or expectation across all companies that have a match program. Then once they log their time, the corporations have some type of internal tracking system or third-party tracking system they use to then convert it to like a dollar amount that they will give to a nonprofit. The example that I have on the right is actual screenshot of TCA's Benevity account. So we have a couple of different companies that we've partnered with already that give to us periodically through Benevity. That's the portal that they give to us through. One of our fiscal sponsees actually also is now volunteering their time as part of their employee benefits with their day job, and that's all happening through Benevity too. So it's kind of cool to see, a real world example of that, and TCA does use it. When the company does match the time, they'll log it and they'll determine, of course, like year to date, have they met their maximum, or is this something we still give on monthly, quarterly, whatever that frequency makes sense for that company to do. So that's the 1, 2, 3-step process of volunteer matching. The hardest part about volunteer matching, in my opinion, is just getting set up in the system initially. So a lot of the times companies will say they'll match with anybody that's like a pre-approved and vetted organization that they approve of. So that requires TCA or whatever nonprofit that's in question that you want to match with to do some initial paperwork or enrollment, if you will, in their program to make sure you're in their system or in their database. But after that, it's pretty much just making sure everyone's logging their times appropriately, and it automates itself after a while. It's very convenient. And when you talk about Taiko, especially in a community group, about all the time that you're practicing, taking care of the space, transporting Taiko to and from, all that actually counts as volunteer time if you're not getting paid to do it. So why wouldn't you turn that into profitable time for the group, if this is a benefit that's afforded to you at your place of employment? So that is in a nutshell what volunteer matching is. It's a little bit different than corporate giving. So corporate matching or corporate giving is when a company matches an amount of money raised either for a specific event or specific item, and it's part of a previously arranged negotiation with that nonprofit organization. So it doesn't just kind of happen at random. This is a back and forth conversation, usually initiated by the nonprofit, to make this partnership a reality. The matching cap usually is determined in that negotiation process, and they can also match with in-kind goods and services. So not necessarily money, but they can say, for every dollar raised, they're going to plant a tree, right? You might have heard of that type of campaign before. So these are different examples that I came up with of matching that you might have heard of or seen. But the ABC Fund will match every dollar up to $10,000 to fight cancer. Those campaigns happen all the time with many organizations throughout the year. XYZ Corporation will do a 2-to-1 match on all proceeds for conservation research. So maybe there's a product being sold, and for every one of those sold, they're going to double it and say twice that amount in proceeds will go to research of this kind. And then another example too is for every $100 raised, TCA will give a pair of bocce to one student. That would be really cool if we could do that one day, actually. And that's an example where we're actually the corporation matching in that situation, right? So just to give you some ideas of what that could look like. Similarly to volunteer match, it's like a 1, 2, 3 process. Like I said, the nonprofit will typically reach out and find matching partners. This is probably the hardest part, this initial step. So depending on who you know or the types of partnerships you're seeking, this could be a very quick thing that happens for you or something that takes a lot longer to cultivate. But once you do find a partner, the corporation will agree to match and start negotiating terms with you. So they'll pick like date, time, the cap amount that they want to give. They might, have some specifics about the language or the imagery used for that fundraising campaign. And all of that is part of that conversation, that relationship you build with a corporate partner. Matching fundraising campaigns usually begin relevant to something that's of value to either the corporation or to the nonprofit. So as an example, if TCA wanted to do a corporate match partnership, we may want to do it around one of our major programs like NATC as like a kickoff time, or when NATC registration opens or something like that. But a corporation may want to do it when they're about to launch a new product and they want to promote and market that too. So that's why it's very important that there is a conversation and both parties feel like their needs are being met in some way through this fundraising campaign. Once the campaign has started, though, you pretty much just stay the course, follow through with the terms of it that you've outlined, and both parties benefit, hopefully, and it's a very successful campaign. So those are the main differences between a volunteer match program and a corporate match program. Just to give you an example in like real dollars, how this could be so significant to fundraising, especially at the community level for Taiko groups. So let's say you're trying to raise money for new drums, and you put the hat around the room and everyone put together about $100. Well, that's great. But let's say one of your group members also works for a company that has a volunteer match benefit. So they logged 10 hours of their volunteer time, which honestly was pretty much Taiko rehearsals, right? At $30 an hour, that's an additional $300 towards this goal of buying new drums. So instead of having $100, you've now effectively quadrupled your money to $400 that you can put towards that equipment. Now, let's say there's a corporate match opportunity. You found somebody that will give $2 for every $1 you raise, up to $500. So you raised $100 together times 2, that's $200. Plus the 100 you already raised now gives you a total of $300. Now let's look at the scenario of maybe you have volunteer match and corporate match both happening at the same time for this same goal of buying new drums. Well, now you've gone from raising just $100 as a group on your own to, with these partnerships, you've now raised a total of $600, which, I mean, is only a $500 difference at the end of the day. But for equipment, that's awesome. That's how many more pairs of bocce that you could get, or a new stand, a new bag, things like that. Like, it really does add up. Another example, right, is you're raising money to maybe bring a workshop teacher to your group or to your classes. And so far you've put together $1,000. Good job. That's fantastic. Some group members do have volunteer match as part of their day job. So they logged 20 hours, which now totals to $1,600, right? Or you found a partner in the community that wants to do a one-to-one corporate match up to $2,500. So since you raised 1,000, they basically doubled your money and now you have $2,000. And if you did both of those programs together for the same teacher, now you're looking at raising a total of $2,600 instead of just 1,000 that your group had to come up with on their own. And that, I mean, that would bring a nice workshop to your group easily, right? So that's what this type of stuff can help you with. And that's why, like we say, it helps double your money or help triple your money in half the time, because once you get these partnerships set up, some of this is already like built-in money that you're earning, especially with volunteer match. How many of your performing members volunteer of their time to do the work of the group? You know, how many of your teachers, artistic directors, anybody, I'm sure in Taiko, we volunteer and give so much of ourselves. It's nice to know that some employers out there actually help to give a little back, which is phenomenal. The real key here is getting started with these match campaigns. And it's all about how you entice or attract a partner to your fundraising, just like a donor, just like anything else. So let's outline that a little bit as well. With volunteer matching, really raising awareness of this with your group members is the key. In my experience and the groups that I've worked with on this, usually like 1 in 10 people in the group or across the groups I've worked with do have an employee benefit of volunteer match, and they didn't even know it could work or apply to their group. And that's really important, is to understand what the rules of their program is relative to their employer and see if you do qualify for it. That's step one. Because if they do have it, then you've got built-in money making already with just time served in the group and the tasks that need to happen there. Second thing is to just be better about tracking volunteer hours so that they get the matched funds much more swiftly, right? If you're not very organized or if there's no way to log those hours, it's very difficult for an employer to get behind that and support, like, hey, we're going to give you X amount of dollars for this time, even though there's no like spreadsheet or tracking system in place that they can reference for the actual time served. Number three, of course, do research on companies in your city that have excellent volunteer match programs. So let's say you have a group where nobody has a day job where that's a benefit to them. Well, then my next recommendation would be to befriend folks that do work for those companies. Invite them to your events. Maybe have them be VIP guests at a next show or something. And this is also a great place to recruit volunteers from the community for your upcoming projects and shows. So maybe they're not interested in playing Taiko with your group, but they'd be happy to be a volunteer in some capacity to support you. They can log their time, and then you're still either getting that volunteer time as a benefit to your group or the time and the monetized money that they match from their day job. So all of it, every little bit of it adds up. And then of course, step four would be sharing with your existing donors and volunteers about this type of giving too. So maybe your group doesn't have collectively an employer that does volunteer match, but in your pool, like your audience members, your donor pool, the list of volunteers you worked with in the past, maybe they do, and they can start enrolling and plugging your group into that as a fundraising tool. So those are the recommendations for starting a campaign with volunteer match. With corporate matching, a little bit different, right? I always recommend starting with research when you're trying to have like a formal relationship with any type of corporation. My recommendations include like research who is headquartered in your community. They're going to want to donate local first before they go to the state or the national scale, because they're headquartered there. It's very good to make those types of partnerships. Also, look at companies in your area that regularly give to the arts, and it's documented that they do. Ask yourself, what can you offer them in terms of exposure or benefit? So when they ask you those questions, and they will, you're prepared and you can speak to that right away. So this could look different from company to company, season to season, as your group evolves and grows over time too. So just be aware of those things. Number two, with starting a corporate match campaign, is to begin contacting folks that work at corporations you feel are a good fit. And I'm not just talking about because they've got lots of money. Like there are certain group values that I think every Taiko group out there maintains. And for whatever reason, they wouldn't want to partner with ABC Corporation because they have such and such history of doing this, and it's not aligned to your values of your group, right? So just think about those things as well. And if these people you reach out to say no initially, it's okay to just be cordial and continue reaching out periodically. Add them to your subscriber list for emails, things like that. Because these building of relationships can take time, especially when there's money involved. So don't be discouraged, just keep at it. And then number three, if someone agrees to match a fundraising campaign with you, I think you should celebrate first. That's fantastic. And then you should know some parameters going into a negotiation so that you're prepared to advocate for what your group needs out of the fundraising campaign as best as possible. And some of these parameters, right, include the dollar amount that you're trying to raise, the time frame of which the campaign will take place. Any way you could specifically articulate how you're going to use the money is important, not just for the fundraising campaign itself, but to attract donors to donate to the fundraiser. And describe the type of match that you're hoping to get with that partner. Are you looking for an in-kind donation, a one-to-one match, which is for every dollar raised, they're going to give $1, a 2-to-1 match, which means for every dollar you raise, they're going to give $2, things like that. And there's infinite combinations of what that can look like, but it's got to be terms that you're comfortable with as well as your partner. And then really have an understanding of how their match and advertising that during the campaign can be marketed so that you can be a good partner to them too. You don't want to misrepresent their brand, for example, in any way, shape, or form as part of their goodwill to match with you. So if you have those questions lined up going into a negotiation with any potential partner, it sets you up for, I think, much more productive conversations, much shorter negotiations, and everybody, is just much more pleased with the outcome of the match partnership. So very briefly too, some tips and tricks that I recommend coming into this space. If you're new to this, like I was when I first started, please take baby steps. Matching relationships take time to get momentum. Volunteer match, especially if you have a group member that has volunteer match employee benefits, that can happen fairly quickly, but corporate matching in particular can take time because you want a quality partnership. You don't want something that's very transactional, because it's not, it may give you short gains, but long term, it's not going to do what you hope it does for your group. And then number two, find a strategy and a goal that you are comfortable with. So don't say your first year looking at corporate matching that you're going to try to raise $1 million for your group. That's not really reasonable, sustainable, attainable, whatever word you want to put there. So find like milestones and goals that you think reasonably your group has the capacity to achieve. And that way, when you actually achieve those goals, it helps encourage, not discourage you as well. Number three, reflect on how effective the partnership is. So a lot of times, especially when it's like our first handful of partners that we've created or volunteer match programs that we've done, you get so excited that it's just in place and you've got this extra money you weren't counting on. They forget to take that like evaluative step at the end and be, hey, was it easy to work with this volunteer, or was it easy to work with this corporate partner? I never want a Taiko group to be in a situation where they're now in a relationship that is toxic with like a volunteer or with a company because they're so dependent on the dollars raised through that relationship. And that those situations usually only happen if we forget to reflect and make the decision, like, should this partnership continue or should we do it again? Yes or no. So I definitely recommend taking time to reflect on the outcomes, right, of your partnership. Track everything. Paper trails are your friend in this case. So volunteer hours, of course, are very important. And also dollars donated with specific partner or with specific volunteer can be very helpful. If your group happens to be a nonprofit, especially, this actually is something that if you earn so much dollars in a tax year, they may actually ask a spreadsheet on to see like what you're accounting for in terms of the bookkeeping and the numbers. So if you're doing it already throughout the year, you're all set versus trying to put all this stuff together from memory, and then it's not as accurate either, which is the thing. So number 5 on tips and tricks, please recognize volunteers that go above and beyond to help in this way. These are the types of volunteers that are not just giving one aspect of themselves, but now multiple aspects, right? Their time, their money, their energy to your group. So please keep them engaged and, let them know that their contributions are making a difference. And then to that end, to number 6, remember to thank corporate match partners and invite them to do it again annually, or for every project or show that makes sense for them to participate in. They get a lot of fanfare during a fundraising campaign because their logo's everywhere, but a lot of times people forget to send them a thank you card about the impact that they help make too. And those are the little touches, right, that help strengthen a partnership or a relationship over time, that will keep a group, I think, more stable and sustainable because they'll have more quality relationships with these type of partnerships. And so that's really the content of this session in a nutshell. I am going to stop the recording now.